Hey, how's it going? It's Sam Frost here from Easy PPC Tutorials, and in this short video, I'm going to show you a really common pitfall or mistake that Google Ads advertisers make when creating search campaigns on Google Ads. So I've got my test account here. Ignore all the random campaigns that have been set up and sort of played around with in the past. We're going to create a new campaign, and we're going to go just follow through the standard campaign creation process, and we're going to create a search campaign here. So the sort of standard, Google AdWords or search ad campaign. We're going to go to continue, and I'm just going to call this a test campaign. We're going to go through, and we're just going to keep everything the same. It's this screen I want to focus on here, this networks piece. So a really common mistake that business owners will make, especially when sort of running do-it-yourself Google ad campaign setup. So you might have heard from someone that you should try Google Ads, and you go through and set up the campaign yourself, or maybe you're new to running Google Ads for your boss or for clients or whatever you're doing. This particular screen or pane is a really common problem point for campaign setups. So by default, Google is going to do two things with your search ad campaign. They're going to opt it into what's called the Search Partners Network. Then they're going to opt it into the display network. Now, the Search Partners Network, I'll talk about that in a different video. Sometimes it works quite well, sometimes it doesn't. Typically, you're okay to leave this as a starting point. It's this piece here, the display network, and where Google says include Google Display Network. You want to untick this box every time. When you create a search ad campaign, the purpose of what you're trying to achieve is extremely different to display advertising. So display advertising is when your ads show on other websites. So if you go on news sites or blogs or whatever, you probably see banner ads. Some of them are running through Google's network or through other networks that kind of all join in together in different ways. I won't go into the technical details of how that works, but that's display advertising. It's kind of like digital billboards or banner advertising. And the way you run display advertising is very, very different to how you do search advertising. The kind of purpose is very different. So with search advertising, you're trying to fulfill demand that exists. Someone's searching for a product or a service or a solution to a problem. With display advertising, you're trying to capture demand, create awareness, and so on. So you don't really want to blend the two in the same campaign because they're two conflicting objectives, two conflicting ways of trying to reach your target customer. I'll talk about that more in future videos, but for now, what you need to know is you shouldn't have this enabled. Google will throw you a warning, and this has changed in recent times. It used to be a bit more of a sort of prominent warning with a yellow background. Depending on your account, you might still see that. I'm not too sure. But basically, they're trying to tell you that you should opt into what they call display expansion to show your ads in more places and get more conversions at a similar cost per action. I would always advise you just to ignore that. You don't want to have display network features enabled in a search ad campaign ever, in my view. There's nothing wrong with display advertising. I'm a big fan of it, but it should be split out from what you do in search. So when you set up your campaigns, make sure that you have this disabled. Don't skip over this and just assume it should be the way it's set up by default. Disable this, ignore the warning, and then set up your campaign. Now, if you've already got a campaign set up and you're not sure whether you've actually opted it into the display network or not, what you can do is actually go and check the campaign settings. So if we go back and look at an existing campaign, and just pick any old search campaign that exists in this account, I'm just going to pick this one here. This is an old testing campaign, and we're going to come along to settings, and you look at the settings for that campaign, wait for it to load up, and you can actually look at the networks tab here. So if you have the display network enabled because you've created your campaign in the past, you can then actually disable that from here and click save. And once again, Google's going to give you a warning saying you're missing out on traffic, basically. But typically, you want to ignore a lot of those warnings that Google gives you, and it's something I'm going to create a video about on that specific topic. Some of the ways Google tries to nudge you down a not necessarily beneficial path. So you can save it and you can actually exit there. If you want to quickly eyeball whether or not your search campaign is opted into the display network, if we just change this back and then go look at the campaign list quickly, I'll show you how you can really quickly tell. So what we're going to do is going to look for the services campaign here, and you can see here how this looks. So if we look at this campaign, there's like a magnifying glass and then what looks like part of a display window or display ad window. This is a display ad campaign here, for example. You can see that it's taken an element of that and actually applied it to this little icon. That's just a really quick way of seeing if your search ad campaign has display features enabled. And then if you saw that, you go in and hit to the settings and then disable the display network and click save. So yeah, hopefully you find that helpful. If you've got any questions, please do let me know. and leave a comment below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Please like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more free Google Ads advice.